You are about to enter a world of dreamscapes and nightmares. A world where the surreal is real, and you will encounter things humanity was never meant to know. Prepare to have your fragile illusions of reality shattered as you cross over into the nightmare realm.
Terror in the Evergreen. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon as we drove down the winding road that led to the Evergreen Forest. Mia, with her fiery red hair and adventurous spirit, was humming along to the radio, her excitement palpable. I, on the other hand, felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation, a knot in my stomach that I attributed to the bumpy ride. We were an unlikely pair, Mia and I. She was the embodiment of wanderlust, always seeking the next thrill, while I preferred the quiet comfort of a book and a warm cup of tea. Yet, in our differences, we found balance and a love that was as deep as the forest we were about to enter. The Evergreen Forest was a sprawling expanse of wilderness, untouched by the modern world. Legends whispered of its timeless beauty and the secrets it held. As children, we had heard tales of the creatures that had roamed these woods, stories meant to scare us, but which only fueled Mia's desire to explore them. Our destination was a secluded spot by the lake, known only to a few. The locals spoke of it with a reverence that bordered on fear, but to Mia, it was the perfect place to disconnect from the world and be at one with nature. As we set up our tent and started a fire, the forest seemed to welcome us with open arms. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of pine and earth. The gentle lapping of the lake's water against the shore was a soothing melody that promised a peaceful night. Little did we know, as the stars began to peek through the canopy of trees, that the serenity of the Evergreen Forest was but a facade, and that we were not alone in its vast, dark embrace. The last rays of the sun kissed the treetops goodbye as we arrived back at our campsite after having taken a short hike. The campsite was in a small clearing by the serene Lake Whisper. The water was still, mirroring the sky's transition from orange to purple. Mia's face lit up with the reflection of the dying light, her eyes sparkling with the kind of joy that only nature could evoke. We unloaded our gear from the back of our old Jeep, our movements synchronized by years of shared adventures. The tent was the first to go up, a cozy two-person shelter that we had affectionately called the Haven. Mia spread out the sleeping bags while I gathered wood for the fire. With practiced ease, I arranged the logs and kindled the flames. The fire crackled to life, casting a warm glow that held the encroaching darkness at bay. Mia joined me by the fire, her hands extended towards the heat, a contented sigh escaping her lips. Dinner was a simple affair: canned beans heated over the open flame and some sandwiches we had prepared earlier. We ate mostly in silence, the kind that was comfortable and familiar. Occasionally, Mia would point out a constellation, her finger tracing the patterns in the sky. After cleaning up, we settled in for the night. The fire had simmered down to embers, its warmth a gentle lullaby. Wrapped in each other's arms, we listened to the symphony of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. But as sleep began to claim us, a sudden snap of a twig jolted us awake. Our eyes met, a flicker of concern passing between us. It was probably just a deer, we reassured each other. Yet as the forest fell silent once more, we couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the shadows. The night had settled like a thick blanket over the forest, and the only light came from the dying embers of our campfire. Mia and I were nestled in our sleeping bags, and that's when the stillness of the night was broken by a sound that neither of us could place, a soft rustling, not of leaves, but something deliberate. At first, we thought it might be the wind, but the air was as still as glass. Then, perhaps an animal foraging in the darkness. But this was different. It was a patterned rustling, accompanied by an occasional thump, as if something was moving with purpose, circling our campsite. Mia clutched my arm, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, straining my ears against the silence that followed. Minutes passed, or maybe it was seconds. Time seemed irrelevant. Summoning courage, I slowly unzipped the tent, the sound of the zipper piercing the quiet like a scream. Peering out, I saw nothing but the shadows of the trees, swaying gently in a breeze I couldn't feel. The rustling had stopped, and for a moment, I wondered if we had imagined it all. Then, without warning, it started again. Closer this time, and unmistakably heading towards us. I zipped the tent shut, and Mia and I huddled together, listening as the sound grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, a silhouette appeared against the fabric of the tent, a shape too misshapen to be human, too large to be any animal we knew. It moved slowly around us, and we could hear the soft panting of breath that was not our own. The creature, whatever it was, paused at the front of the tent, and we held our breath, praying it would move on. But instead, it let out a low, guttural growl that froze the blood in our veins, a sound that spoke of hunger. It was the first encounter, the beginning of a night that would test our will to survive. The growl that had escaped the creature's throat was but a harbinger of the terror that was about to unfold. Mia and I clung to each other, our hearts pounding in our chests as we braced for what was coming. The creature's presence was an oppressive force, suffocating us with fear. Then, with a suddenness that took our breath away, the creature tore at the tent's fabric. The sound of ripping nylon was like a scream in the night, and through the gaping tear, the creature's form became visible in the moonlight. It was a horror made flesh, a being that defied all natural laws. Its skin was a patchwork of scales and matted fur, glistening with an unwholesome sheen. Its limbs were elongated, ending in claws that seemed to grasp at the air with a hunger for flesh. But it was the creature's face that was the most terrifying, a twisted visage of snarling jaws and teeth, and eyes that looked human, but burned with malevolence. Mia screamed, a sound that was quickly muffled by my hand over her mouth. "We need to run," I whispered, the words barely audible over the pounding of my heart. The creature hesitated, as if savoring our fear, then lunged forward, its jaws snapping inches from our faces. We scrambled out of the tent's opposite side, the cold night air hitting us like a wall. Our feet found purchase on the forest floor, and we ran as if the very hounds of hell were at our heels. The creature gave chase, its roars a constant reminder of the death that followed. We darted between trees, leaped over roots, and pushed our bodies to their limits. The creature was relentless, its pursuit a nightmare from which there was no waking. Every glance back revealed its looming presence, a specter of dread that haunted our every step. It was a chase that would lead us to the edge of despair, a dance with death that we were desperate to escape. The creature was a force of nature, a terror that emerged from the shadows to claim us, and we were running for our lives. The forest around us was a blur as Mia and I ran for our lives. The creature's growls were a constant presence, a terrifying soundtrack to our flight. Every snapped twig or rustled leaf sent shivers down our spines as we imagined the creature's breath on our necks. Our minds raced, trying to recall every survival tip we had ever learned. "Split up," I yelled, hoping to confuse the creature. Mia nodded, and we veered in opposite directions. The plan was risky, but it was better than being sitting ducks. I darted through the trees, my breath coming in short gasps. The creature seemed to hesitate, then followed Mia. Guilt washed over me, but I knew she was thinking the same thing. Buy time. Create distance. I circled back, trying to find a way to draw the creature away from her. Mia was smart, using the terrain to her advantage. She climbed rocks and jumped over ravines, her agility one of her strongest assets. I could hear the creature's frustrated snarls as it struggled to keep up with her nimble movements. We had to regroup, to face the creature together. I found Mia by the lake, her face a mask of determination. "We need a weapon," she said, scanning the ground for anything we could use. We settled on large branches. Crude, but better than nothing. The creature was closing in again, its cunning eyes searching for us. We stood, back to back, branches poised to strike. It was a standoff, a test of wills between predator and prey. Our survival instincts had kicked in, a primal force that drove us to fight, to live. We were no longer just a couple on a camping trip. We were warriors, battling a nightmare made flesh, and we were determined to survive. The night was a relentless adversary, and with each passing moment, Mia and I were pushed further to the brink. The creature's pursuit was a symphony of terror, its every growl and snarl a note that resonated with our deepest fears. Our first close call came as we navigated a narrow ridge. The ground crumbled beneath my feet, and for a heart-stopping second, I teetered on the edge of oblivion. Mia's hand shot out, her grip ironclad, pulling me back from the precipice. We didn't stop to catch our breath. We couldn't afford to. The second close call was even more harrowing. The creature had almost outflanked us, cutting off our path to safety. We were cornered, the creature's eyes gleaming in the darkness. It was then that Mia did the unthinkable. She charged at the beast, brandishing her makeshift weapon with a primal scream. The creature recoiled, surprised by her audacity, and we seized the moment to slip away. Our third close call was a stroke of luck, or perhaps fate. As we stumbled through a dense thicket, the creature's claws snagged on a tangle of vines, giving us precious seconds. Those seconds felt like an eternity, and we didn't waste them. We plunged deeper into the forest, driven by the will to survive. Each close call left its mark on us, etching a map of near misses on our psyche. Our bodies were pushed past exhaustion, our minds sharpened to a razor's edge. We were surviving, but only just. The creature was a relentless hunter, and we were its chosen prey. But it wasn't just the physical pursuit that tormented us. It was the psychological game the creature played. It seemed to delight in our fear, to feed off our desperation. With each close call, it was as if the creature was tightening the screws, savoring the hunt, prolonging our terror. We knew we couldn't keep this up forever. We needed a plan, a way to turn the tables on our pursuer. It was a gamble, but it was all we had left. And so with hearts heavy with dread, we prepared for what could be our final stand. Our breath was ragged, our bodies weary, but the terror that drove us refused to allow rest. The creature's relentless pursuit had pushed us to the edge of endurance, and in our desperation, we stumbled upon a glimmer of hope. An abandoned cabin, its silhouette a stark contrast against the night sky. The structure was old, the wood weathered and groaning with the weight of untold years. It stood as a testament to a time long past, its windows dark, its door slightly ajar. Mia and I exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between us. This cabin could be our salvation or our tomb. With the creature's growls echoing in our ears, we dashed to the cabin, the door creaking ominously as we threw it open. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the air thick with the scent of mold and neglect. We scrambled to barricade the door with anything we could find, an old table, chairs, the remnants of someone else's memories. The creature arrived moments later, its body slamming against the door with a force that shook the very walls. We held our breath, praying our makeshift barricade would hold. The creature snarled and clawed, each thud a hammer blow to our fraying nerves. Mia's hand had found mine in the darkness, her grip conveying a message of hope and fear. We were together, and as long as we had each other, we had a reason to survive. The night was long, and the creature's presence a constant reminder of the danger we were in. The darkness of the cabin was oppressive, a tangible presence that seemed to press against our very souls. Mia and I sat huddled together, our backs against the wall, listening to the creature's intermittent assaults on our flimsy sanctuary. Each thud against the door sent a jolt of fear through us, a reminder that our safety was nothing but an illusion. As the hours ticked by, the adrenaline that had fueled our flight began to wane, replaced by an exhaustion that weighed heavily on our eyelids. Yet sleep was a luxury we could not afford. We had to remain vigilant, aware that any moment could be our last. The creature's presence was an unspoken terror between us. We spoke in hushed tones, our conversation a desperate attempt to distract ourselves from the reality of our situation. We talked about everything and nothing. Our first date, our favorite movies, the trips we wanted to take, anything to keep the fear at bay. But as the night dragged on, our words became fewer, our silences longer. Our minds were haunted by the same unanswerable questions. What was this creature? Why was it hunting us? Would we make it through the night? The cabin creaked and groaned around us, the sounds of it settling a macabre symphony that played with our nerves. Every shadow seemed to move, every gust of wind a whisper of doom. We clung to each other, finding a measure of comfort in the warmth of human contact. At some point, Mia's head rested against my shoulder, her breathing deep and even. She had succumbed to exhaustion, her body no longer able to fight the need for rest. I envied her, even as I envied the innocence of our past selves, who had ventured into the forest without a care in the world. The night was a test, a trial by darkness that pushed us to the brink of madness. We were trapped in a waking nightmare, and all we could do was wait for the dawn, praying that it would bring an end to our ordeal. And so we endured the long night, our spirits battered but unbroken, our resolve hardened by the will to survive. We were more than just a couple lost in the woods. We were survivors, and we would not go quietly into the dark. The night had been an endless abyss, a chasm into which Mia and I had been cast, with only our will to survive as a lifeline. But as the darkest hour passed, a subtle change began to permeate the cabin. The oppressive weight of the creature's presence lifted, and the air felt less charged, less hostile. We dared not hope, not yet, but the silence that enveloped us was a different kind of quiet, a peaceful hush rather than the suffocating stillness of before. It was the first sign that dawn was approaching, the first whisper of salvation. As the sky outside transitioned from black to a deep blue, the creature's assaults on our refuge ceased. We listened intently, straining our ears for any sound, but there was nothing. Only the gentle creaking of the cabin and our own shallow breaths filling the space. With the first light of dawn, I cautiously approached the window, peering through the cracks in the boarded-up panes. The forest was shrouded in a mist, the trees standing like silent sentinels in the early morning light. And there, on the edge of the clearing, I saw the creature. It was motionless, its form less menacing in the light of the new day. Its eyes, which had glowed with malevolence in the darkness, now seemed dull, almost lifeless. And as the sun's rays broke over the horizon, the creature turned and vanished into the forest, as if it were a part of the night itself, disappearing with the shadows. Mia joined me at the window, her hand gripping mine tightly. We watched together as the world outside transformed, the colors of dawn painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. It was a sight we had taken for granted so many times before, but now it was a symbol of hope, of life. We waited until the sun was fully risen, the warmth of its light a balm to our chilled bones. Only then did we dare to leave the safety of the cabin. The forest, so menacing in the night, now seemed to welcome us with open arms, the birds singing as if to celebrate our survival. We walked out of the cabin, our steps tentative but determined. The memory of the creature was still fresh, a nightmare that would linger in our minds. But we had survived. We had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, and for that we were eternally grateful. The dawn had been our salvation, a herald of the end of our ordeal. And as we made our way back to the world we knew, we realized that we were leaving a part of ourselves behind in that cabin, in the forest. We were changed, forever bound by the night of terror we had endured, but also by the dawn that had set us free. The forest is now behind us, a dark chapter in the book of our lives that we were both eager to close. The sun was high in the sky, and by the time Mia and I reached our car, the light of day a stark contrast to the shadows we had fled. We drove in silence, the hum of the engine a soothing balm to our frayed nerves. Our hands found each other's, a silent vow that we were there, together, alive. The creature, that embodiment of our nightmares, was behind us, but the memory of it clung to us like a second skin. In the days that followed, we spoke little of what happened. It was as if by acknowledging it, we would give the creature power, allow it to breach the safety of our reality. But the signs of our ordeal were there, jumping at shadows, flinching at the sound of a branch breaking, the nightmares that left us gasping for air. We tried to return to normalcy, to the mundane routine of our lives before the forest. But there was a before and there was an after. And the line between the two was irrevocably drawn. Friends and family commented on the change in us, the haunted look in our eyes, the way we seemed to listen for something only we could hear. The forest changed us. It took our innocence, our untested courage, and gave us back a wisdom we hadn't wanted. We knew now that there were things in this world beyond understanding, beyond reason. We had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had stared back. But with time, the sharp edges of fear dulled. The creature became a story we told in hushed tones, a warning to others who sought the thrill of the unknown. We became guardians of a secret, keepers of a tale that was too real to be legend, too fantastical to be truth. And sometimes, on nights when the wind howls and the world seems a little less certain, we wonder if the creature still roams the Evergreen Forest. We wonder if it remembers us, if it yearns for the chase, for the fear it inspired. But we'll never go back to find out. We've learned our lesson, paid the price for our curiosity. We have survived, and that is enough. The forest, with all its beauty and terror, is a part of us now, a reminder of the night we faced the unimaginable and lived to tell the tale.
I hope you've enjoyed your journey into the nightmare realm. Congratulations. You've returned to the safety of the real world. Haven't you?